Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Buffalo Roundup, your home for all things Buffalo athletics on the podcast side of things. It's made by the Buffalo, for the Buffalo. I'm Cody Hills, joined alongside my crew, Marty Zuro and Drew Shaltry. And guys, it's good to just have a minute with you because it feels like we have not had a minute. The crossover between the winter sports and the spring sports, obviously a busy one, but we're awake. Well, no real sunshine, but we're awake. We're in the elements. We're doing a podcast. Things are okay.
Yeah, kind of crazy. I think we're filming this on a Wednesday, and there was supposed to be a beach volleyball game today, and that got canceled, which I think makes this the first day in about 3 weeks that there has not been some sort of athletic event on or off campus.
Yeah, I mean, just
take a breath.
Like you said, that overlap has been it's been a lot, and it always is. But it's exciting to get the new sports going. Obviously, excited that our winter sports have made it so deep into the postseason, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But yeah, always a fun time of year, though.
Yeah, on today's episode, we're going to talk about the boys basketball team. They're playing in the regional semifinal, continuing their run to hopefully back to Lakeland. We'll jump over to the spring sports a little bit. We'll touch on baseball. The Buffalo on the diamond off to a 3-0 start this season. And then we will end it with a rapid fire session where we're going to talk the rest of the winter sports that have wrapped up. Girls basketball, unfortunately, their season ending last night at Windermere Prep, as well as both soccer teams and wrestling district tournament getting underway today, Wednesday afternoon at Weeki Wachee. All that and more in this edition of the Buffalo Roundup. And as a reminder, as you wait for each new edition of this podcast, you can find all you need to know about the Village's high school sports at any time on our athletics website. We've got a digital home just for you, complete with scores, schedules, rosters, and other information such as ticketing and live stream broadcasts of Buffalo athletic programs right at your fingertips. Be sure to check us out online today at athletics.tvcs.org. Well, guys, let's chat some VHS boys basketball here. The Buffalo getting set to play in their third straight regional final. It'll be here at home tonight, Thursday night, 7 p.m., taking on Tampa Catholic, getting a rematch against the Crusaders. More on that in a minute. Back in the regional final, third in a row for this Buffalo team, trying to make it back to Lakeland and get to that Class 3A Final Four. But before we talk about that matchup, let's chat a little bit about the regional semifinal. Buffalo dispatching Discovery, taking down the Spartans 80-47 here on Monday night in Middleton. A packed crowd. I would assume they got their money's worth. Buffalo, another 80-point output, their 10th of the season, 80 or more points, and also defensively really good, allowing just the 47 points. Guys, your thoughts on that regional semifinal victory? Marty, I'll start with you. Buffalo looked to be peaking, hopefully at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, we came into that game saying, oh, there's no way this could be another 30, 40-point blowout for the Buffalo. I think Drew Chaltry over here, he called it like 5 minutes before the broadcast. Yeah, this one's going to be really exciting. It was because Discovery, and I say this with a lot of respect because they did a lot of great things. They literally could not score the basketball against the Buffalo defense.
Yeah.
That's just what happened. The offensive output was really just a series of transition points. They had over 20 points in transition against Discovery's 9. You start getting numbers like that, and it's not hard to figure out how the Buffalo jumped out to a 30-point lead and got the running clock in that game.
Well, Drew, you and I talked on the broadcast. I think one of the keys we talked about was who could kind of impose their pace of play more. And I think over the first 4 minutes, Discovery got what they wanted, slowing it down, kind of getting it into the half court. I think their first possession was about a minute long, ended with a shot attempt. But Buffalo finally found their way, I think, like Marty is saying, through turnovers and transition, got the pace to where they wanted it and ran away with it.
Yeah, it was 6-6 midway through the first quarter. I think each team had attempted 3 shots at that point, and all it was 2 3-pointers from each team. So, I mean, it was incredibly slow for the first 4 minutes, and we were a little bit concerned at that point if VHS would be able to break out of that, if the Buffalo would be able to kind of change the game to get out on the front foot and get it to the kind of pace that they want to play at, because Discovery did a great job coming in, slowing things down, VHS obviously wanting to play fast, and then just on a dime, it turned. VHS all of a sudden starts to score points, ends up with a decent lead at the end of the first quarter, expands it by halftime, and then come out pretty early in that third quarter. It's pretty obvious that they were going to get that running clock. And so I think that we were surprised, not just because of how the game started. But even beforehand, if you told me that VHS was going to score 80 points, I would have been dubious, just because Discovery had done such a good job of limiting opponents this year. And the matchup on paper, we looked at the starting five stat for stat. It seemed like it was going to be on paper a really, really even matchup and a really interesting one. And again, for all of about 4 minutes it was. And by the end of that first quarter, it was pretty clear who the better team was. And Discovery never managed to kind of pull back control of the game. And by halftime, they had to completely get out of what they wanted to do, which clearly was to slow the game down. And then when they tried to play fast, make up that deficit, it just played into what the Buffalo wanted to do, and things went from bad for worse.
And I mean, I think you can even look as far back as January 25th against Westminster Academy. The story of the Buffalo offense has been the three-pointer.
Yeah.
Against Discovery, they have a struggle. They only shoot 8 for 24, I think it was, which is below what they've been averaging over the past 3 weeks. But they still get it done, and they still have a large lead that culminates into a blowout victory with the entire bench playing a good portion of the fourth quarter in a running clock.
Well, the Buffalo, as we said, are going to advance on. Will be playing in the regional final here this evening in Middleton. They are going to get a second crack at Tampa Catholic. The Crusaders picked up a 74-64 victory. Now, you got to go way back to just after, technically it was just after Thanksgiving, game 3 of the season. This team maybe hadn't quite gelled yet. There was a really bad first quarter in there. I think VHS gave up 22, 24 points, whatever it was in that first quarter.
22 to 12, and then it was even throughout after that.
So I'll ask first one question to each of you. Marty, what goes into a rematch? Because I kind of joke with Colt McDowell after the victory over Discovery that this Buffalo team if assuming they take care of business and they play the way they're capable of playing, they very potentially could get everything they want. They wanted a rematch with Tampa Catholic. Guess what? They're going to get it. If you win that, you start looking ahead to the seeding, get into the Final Four. You might get your rematch against Andrew Jackson in a state semifinal. Then after that, if you just want to let the state tournament go chalk, maybe looking at Calvary Christian, the number 1 seed, playing them for a championship. Of course, a lot of talk about them, and if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. Buffalo maybe have everything that they want lined up in front of them, but first things first, this rematch against Tampa Catholic, from a coaching staff standpoint, Marty, how do you prepare a team to face someone for a second time? And there's going to probably be emotion involved. You're going to want to get your get back, if you will. How do you kind of keep everyone zeroed in on a rematch?
I think first you're happy that there's so much time between the two games because you're a completely different team. The other nice thing is Tampa Catholic in some ways is going to be an entirely different team by this point in the season. You maybe reference back that game film just to see what did Tampa Catholic do that took us out of what we wanted to do, what did we not stop of theirs. But then you just got to look at more recent film, and it's got to turn into you have to care more about just winning, hating the loss, not who the opponent is. And if you do that, things will take care of themselves. I mean, Colt McDowell has preached all year long, just do your job, know your assignment, play for each other, and things will take care of themselves.
For Drew, I'm going to turn to you and ask for kind of your biggest key in the rematch. I think you could go several ways. Of course, VHS, much better free throw shooting the other night, 14 of 16. They were abysmal in the regional quarterfinal against Astronaut and even back to the district tournament. Defense, pace of play, whatever you want to go. It seems like there's a lot of ways that if VHS can execute the way that they want to play basketball, they could be in good shape. Yeah,
well, assuming that the free throw issues have been resolved more or less, which, again, 1 game sample size, and it's been a bit of a struggle for a good portion of the season. So not saying that it is. That's obviously going to be key because I think this is going to be a close game down the stretch. But
for real this time, a close game. Yeah, for real.
We hope. I mean, listen, I would love to see the Buffalo come out and win by 40, but I'd also love to see a good regional final. Just as a fan of high school basketball, a good regional final on the home floor I think would be awesome. But I think that for them, it's going to be coming out and setting the tone early. You're in your building this time. We've seen they've barely lost at all in this gym ever since it opened at the beginning of last school year. And so just a 1 home loss this year to one of the best teams in the state of Florida, in West Oaks Academy. And you come out, set the tone early, get off to the kind of hot starts that they've had in a lot of games during this 8-game winning streak. And I think that they'll be in good shape. Once the Buffalo tend to get ahead, they tend to hold those leads. We saw that bumpy stretch in the middle of the season where third quarters got really shaky for them. It's been completely the opposite. After halftime, it's not so much flipping a switch as just turning up that dial and really accelerating after halftime and putting teams away. And so if they can put themselves in a position to keep doing that against a Tampa Catholic team that is really good and I think is going to keep it close, if they can get themselves out with an advantage going into halftime, I think the Buffalo set themselves up well.
Well, I'm excited. I'm fired up for it. Again, 7 p.m. tip-off Thursday night here inside the VHS Gymnasium right over there. Get your tickets now. Again, we are expecting a large capacity crowd. We were just about the point where we were going to tell people, let's scoot in and get cozy. We weren't quite there for the regional semifinal. And bet that we probably will be for the regional final. Get your tickets now ahead of time. And Marty, tell the folks how they can get tickets to that game.
Well, Cody, throughout the FHSA playoffs and also year-round, all of our tickets for our home games are on GoFan. GoFan is our official ticket provider. That's where you can find the athletics year pass and also individual game tickets. If you want to visit gofan.co, and then you type in the Villages into the search bar, you'll immediately find all of the tickets for the Villages high school events that are at home, even some on the road, and you just download it on your phone, bring your phone in, they check it, and then you're right in. You don't have to wait in line, don't have to pay cash. Nice and easy transaction. Once again, gofan.co, search for the Villages.
Well, guys, let's switch gears a little bit here and turn to our first spring sports segment on the Buffalo Roundup. We're going to talk some baseball. The Buffalo baseball team off to a really good start, 3-0 to start the season. A couple home wins in that time as well. Beat Tavares in the opener last week as well. Went on the road and beat Fave 16-1. And then just fresh off a 12-0 win last night over Oakall. The visitors from Gainesville held to just one hit. The Buffalo tallied 11. Anytime you win an emergency rule, it's good. Drew, we'll start with you. Good hitting. I wrote here on our notes, good batting plus good pitching equals good start to the season for the Buffalo.
Yeah, it's been that simple for them so far, hasn't it? And, 3 games so far on the year, 3-0, obviously. Both starts at home for Lincoln Gagne, who I think has been excellent and a big part of the success for the Buffalo, but also early batting. We saw in the last couple of years, it's taken them a little while, both within the season and within games, to get the bats going, and they're coming out early, they're coming out aggressive, they're getting runs in the first inning and playing from ahead throughout. And so, when you have solid pitching, which we know that they have in their ace. We'll see how the rest of the rotation kind of builds out as the season goes along. But at least in those games where you've got Lincoln Gagne starting, if you can come out and score runs in the first inning, you're pretty well set. And so I think that they've really got a chance to have a great season just built around that kind of formulation. If you can get a good start, a little bit of solid outings from your bullpen, and they have been solid so far. And then get those early hits. I think you really have a chance in just about every baseball game. That's what I said on the broadcast last night. And, there is something to be said. Baseball is a pretty, not easy, but it's a simple sport, And so I think that keeping it simple, kind of locking into that very fundamental recipe is going to serve them well.
I want to ask a little bit here about it's our first season, obviously, with Devin Anderson as head coach. This is for either one of you. Getting to watch him a little bit, pre-game batting practice, a couple of practices we watched, and now we've had 2 home games. I personally really like the makeup of the team. I like the way that they carry themselves. The body language is good. It sort of seems like everything else is being taken care of so that we can focus on the on-field between the lines. Of course, Devin Anderson, a former Major League Baseball draft pick, played 11 years professionally throughout the minor league and indie ball circuits. And it sort of seems like he is running his program in that way as well. And that's always such a good, I think, calming influence, but that professional approach, there's something to be said for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we see it in the pregame batting practice. He throws a bit of batting practice. He's a lefty, former pitcher. His assistant throws a bit of batting practice, righty. And then the other thing is he often has another player or JV player throw a bit of batting practice, and he stands behind with his assistants, the batter, and gives instruction during that. I think there's a lot of teaching going on that he knows it's too late now to make fundamental changes, but if he can get them to adjust, I was hearing him call out simple things that he noticed from batters yesterday, and I think that's just kind of part of the air of a professional, major league draft pick. 11 years in the pros, even as a minor leaguer, is a good career to talk about. I mean, there's guys that barely spend a year in the minor leagues and get sent home. So, he's definitely bring that air of professionalism. I think the thing I like the most too is that the players, they seem to have this like cool confidence about them. That it used to kind of seem like they would get out there and there was a lot of cockiness and overconfidence, which oftentimes hides a bit of, insecurity.
Yep.
And baseball, if anything, out of all the sports, I think the sport you need to be the most confident in mentally is baseball, because it is such a mental preparation up until the 0.2 seconds you have to swing a bat, or the half a second before you release a pitch, or the instant decision of catch and where do I throw. Everything else is mental. You're standing out in the middle of a field for 4 hours waiting for a ball to come your direction. Simple game, right? Yeah. And that's where it leads to.
And you talked about batting practice and how professional it has seemed. Also, before and after batting practice looks completely different. The efficiency with which the team is setting stuff up, taking stuff down, like you said, taking care of the stuff off the field allows them more room to just focus on baseball. And I feel like they're a little bit more regimented off the field, and they're a little bit more, there's kind of a hop-to-itiveness in what they're doing off the field. Again, just taking care of that outside stuff, getting it done, and it's allowed them more time to focus on the game. And I think that it, again, through the offseason has served them well and is hopefully setting them up for a good season.
Yeah. One thing I noticed when we did our media day with them, and we thank Coach Anderson for his time the day before their season opener last week, they came out in full uniform, some of the guys, and they were getting ready to leave after we were done, and he kind of shouted a reminder, we don't untuck that jersey until we're off the field. It's a little thing like that. You kind of respect the field that you play on, respect the diamond. A couple shouts out individually to a couple guys. Marcello Cortali hit his third home run of the season. That leads the state as of now. Of course, we're early in the season, but 3 home runs for Marcello. Connor Briggs as well, his first hit last night. He was able to, on a very breezy night here at the VHS Baseball Stadium, he was able to ride that breeze on a 2-run shot, out to right field. I kind of found the soft spot in the wind. So a couple home runs for him. So that now is, carry the 1, 4 home runs for the Buffalo through 3 games here this season. So,
and that's without the bat of the Irish Hammer getting
the Irish Hammer, Joe Kilpatrick, who's seemingly hitting everything except home runs. He's off to a good start. Torrin Foley, I think, is up to 9 or 10 stolen bases already this year. And then you mentioned the pitching of Lincoln Gagne. Buffalo off to a good start. They're 3-0. You can catch them back in action here Friday night as well. Lake Weir will be here in town Friday night, 7 p.m. You can catch them. And if you can't catch that game, you can get an update through our social media accounts. Be sure to follow along with all of the action and all of our teams through our VHS Buffalo social media channels. Check out our Facebook page listed as VHS Buffalo Athletics. Our X account, formerly known as Twitter, can be found at Villages Buffalo. And then, of course, we share photos, videos, and more on our Instagram at Villages Buffalo on there, too. And as always, we thank you for your support of VHS Buffalo Athletics on social media. All right, guys, our final segment of this edition of the Buffalo Roundup, we're going to have a little rapid-fire session, if you're okay with that. We're going to touch on some winter sports that are wrapping up and then tease to a few spring sports as well. We'll start with the girls basketball team. Marquez Porter's bunch had their season end, unfortunately, last night in the regional semifinals, losing at Windermere Prep 74-53. The Buffalo end their season at 23-6. Marty, you can go first. Your thoughts on this season, Marquez Porter? Those 23 wins were a program record for the most in any season.
Yeah, and I think the statement one of that was the 23rd one against Tampa Catholic in the regional quarterfinal. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it because it's our first podcast since the regionals have started, but they found a way to win. Even though in the last 2 minutes of the game, it looked like they didn't want to win. Not that they looked like they didn't want to win, but man, they turned the ball over at least 10 times in that last 2 minutes, and it just seemed like that game was going to slip away from them. But they held their resolve. 2 big free throws from Zion McCray at the end of that game, and then they have to go down to Orlando, play a Windermere Prep team who's just seen all the best teams in Orlando and across the state. And, sometimes even with the best team in school history up since the Final Four run back in 2013. sometimes it's your time to bow out of the playoffs, and it just didn't go their way early in that game, and they couldn't come back against Winterbury Prep.
No slight, obviously, against Iva Charles or Alasia Poole, the other two seniors on this roster, but it's the end of the career of Zion McCrae. Drew, you and I have witnessed her since she came here from PK Young, of course, Marty too, but getting a chance to call the games on the broadcast, the majority of them. She has given us a lot of moments to not only raise our voice, but then get out of our seat as well, and it's a heck of a ride and a heck of a journey for her ending here at VHS.
Yeah, she's been outstanding, and it's a large group of this VHS team that's coming back, but that's such a central piece that Marquez Porter has to figure out how to replace. And so you'll see if you can kind of recreate her in the aggregate, if he decides to go money ball, or if he's going to pass off those Zion McCrae responsibilities to one of the players coming off the bench. But again, huge piece, not just in the scoring, because we know what she can do as a scorer, but I think what really this year set her apart, and she'd always had that true point guard element to her game where she could be the primary distributor. Obviously, she's handling the ball most of the time, but this year, the driving kick stuff, the vision on the court that she had, I think is part of what elevated the Buffalo so far into the season that they had. And losing that is really going to be the hardest thing to replace. So finding someone who can, kind of give you that is going to be a challenge for Marquez Porter, and that is certainly what the Buffalo are going to miss most from her next year.
Turn our attention to the pitch. Both the boys and girls soccer teams found their respective thorns in their side. It just so happened both to be Lake Highland Prep. The boys losing 2-1 in their playoff matchup. The girls losing 7-0. The boys finished with a 10-9-1 mark. The girls 11-4-2 overall. Drew, I'll turn to you. It's the end of the soccer seasons for both of those squads. But again, another successful season, I think, at least in the grand scheme of things for both Brian Roush, Anderson De Silva. And it's two programs now that getting to this season or point in the season has sort of become the expectation.
Yeah, regional semifinal typically is where these teams land. And VHS girls unfortunately going out in the quarters to Lake Highland Prep. We knew that was going to be a tough matchup based on how that district semifinal went, 6-0 in that one. We had speculated on the podcast if maybe they'd be a little bit better ready for them in the rematch. Lake Highland Prep comes out with a 7-0. That's a really strong program. There's a reason that VHS has historically had trouble getting past them in soccer, both on the boys and girls side. And so a tough way for them to go out, but just I think a little bit under-equipped to fight a team of that caliber. The boys, it looked like for a moment that they were going to win that game, had a real chance at it, went blow for blow with Lake Highland for a little bit, but eventually fell 2-1. And again, just speaking to the quality of that Lake Highland Prep team, that's a hill that they're going to have to climb at some point, assuming that the classifications as they currently stand remain for a little bit. Lake Highland Prep, a district opponent for both of those teams. So, kind of stuck in there with them, so they're not going anywhere. VHS girls a little better equipped to move on. Plenty of youth in that team. VHS boys, huge senior class going out. A lot of the talent on that group. Starting goalkeeper, starting center back, starting winger, couple starting midfielders, all gone with this class of 2025. So it'll be interesting to see how Anderson De Silva kind of reloads. But we've seen it's kind of been 3-year cycles for the most part with that boys soccer team, and could be entering the beginning of another one right now.
And then, of course, be remiss not to mention the girls weightlifting team. They finished 7th in the traditional discipline at the state meet last weekend down at the RP Funding Center in Lakeland. Alexa Gillespie finishing really tough scenario here, losing on tiebreak criteria, losing out on the state title individually for her in the 129-pound division. Lifted the same amount of weight as the other top competitor, but losing on tiebreak. And then the Buffalo, I think, finished maybe 14th or 15th in the Olympic discipline, but heck of a run for that girls team. Sherry Beavis now leading that, does a great job. And then finish up with the winter sports with wrestling. They have their district tournament today. I'm going to head out of here and get over there to Weeki Wachi and watch them. I think a lot of excitement there for those guys. Of course, you talk about Jonathan Clossy, the number one ranked wrestler at 175 pounds. You figure he'll breeze through, at least hopefully, the district tournament. There's a lot of guys, 8-9 guys, I think, that could advance on through, have a good shot at their district. They went 3-1 at the Talbot duels here last weekend. Really good crowd for that. And then shout out to Emily Franson. Became the first female wrestler in school history to advance from districts to regionals, just starting the girls program up here. She went 3-1, lost her first round match, but then came back with 3 pinfalls in the consolation, so that's pretty cool. And finally, guys, we'll wrap up this rapid fire segment with, I'm just going to ask each of you here going off script, but spring sports, we have softball starting up tonight, Thursday night. VHS softball taking on Lakeland to kick off the TVCS Kickoff Classic there. They'll be playing Thursday night, Friday night, and then a double header on Saturday. Plenty of other softball action as well. I think, what do we settle on? $10, I think, for the day pass. So
$10 per day.
That'll get you in. You can watch all the softball you want, both here at the high school. Then there's a few games as well later in the tournament at the K-8 here in Middleton. I also want to touch on, we had flag football getting ready to get going here as well. Thursday, they open tonight here as well. Boy, busy day.
I think we can close how we opened. It's busy.
It's busy.
It's real busy.
Let me just ask each of you, though. We talked on baseball, so don't pick baseball, but what are you most looking forward to? We also got track starting soon. Oh, my goodness. Boys lifting well underway. But what are you guys, tennis? Gosh, I could just keep going. What are you guys most excited? We're looking forward to one storyline maybe in the spring sports.
I think the biggest storyline is seeing how the baseball team, I know you said don't talk about them, but the one thing we do have to watch for is over spring break, they're headed up to Tennessee, to Chattanooga, to play in a big tournament up there that often produces one of the state champions out of Tennessee in a different classification. But if I was going to choose one of the other sports, I'm really interested to see our softball team, also a new head coach in Julie Woolard. I want to see how they come out, if that same professionalism is being applied, if that same type of discipline. She was a college softball player at the University of South Florida, a lot of experience there. First time being a head coach of a high school program, but sometimes you get a bit of that energy, and it can change. A lot of young players on that team.
A lot.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, and for me, I think the one that I'm most interested to see how it goes this spring is flag football. 3rd year for this program. Head coach Jamie LaCourse has obviously spent a lot of time introducing this sport to a lot of new players, kind of teaching those fundamentals. Now in the 3rd year, he's got a lot of upperclassmen who have been with him for 1 and 2 years previously, and so there's that baseline is already there. The numbers have been incredible. Out on this practice field right behind us, when they practice in the afternoon, plenty of girls out there, 20, 30 girls. And now the basketball and soccer players who play flag football in the spring are going to be able to join them as well. They've made up a big part of that team in the past couple of years. So seeing them in their second full varsity season, obviously you have the one probation year at the beginning, but second full year in FHSAA competition, I'm really excited to see what they can do this season.
One other sport we can also kind of apply the same thing to is beach volleyball.
Yeah,
second year of beach volleyball. 5 beach volleyball courts out behind us. They've actually moved up a classification to Class 2A, kind of the same district they were in. So I wonder if that's just some of the FHSA redistricting throughout all of the different sports. They were slated to have their first one today, but because of the bad weather rolling in, they're not going to. We look to see them in the next couple weeks here at home.
We hope to see you at home, too, and maybe bring us, I don't know, dinner, a pillow, blanket, something. We're going to be here a lot. But we hope to see you here. And again, hope to see you Thursday night tonight, 7 p.m., taking on Tampa Catholic, the boys basketball in a regional final. If you don't want to do that, there's flag football for you. There's softball for you. There's baseball Friday night. There's a lot going on. We hope to see you there. And we hope to see you as well on the next edition of the Buffalo Roundup. For Drew Shaltry, for Marty Zuro, I'm Cody Hills. Tell them what we tell them, guys.
Go Buffalo.